People have asked me, like, how'd you pull that off? And I'm like, I didn't. Like, it just happened.
I took someone small and made him big.
The story of Josh Wise and the Doge car. This week on Upvoted by Reddit. Welcome to episode 14 of Upvoted by Reddit. I'm your host, Alexis Ohanian. I hope you all enjoyed last week's episode with Craig Watts and Leah Garces. Hearing about the treatment of animals is not always the most easy topic to listen to, but it's an important one. We saw a great response in the comments on r/upvoted, and it was easily one of the most popular episodes we have ever done. So it's not too late to listen and join the conversation on r/upvoted. This week, however, we're going to be doing something a little bit more lighthearted and fun. We'll be talking about how Reddit's Dogecoin community, that's Dogecoin, we'll get into that later, helped sponsor underdog NASCAR driver Josh Wise. What's Dogecoin, you may ask?
I say it's just an online currency like PayPal. PayPal is just, money that's just transferring throughout the internet. And that's basically what Dogecoin is. It's basically just a sort of currency you could use to buy stuff. The only difference is just a bunch of kind of codes to make up the money, instead of just like actual currency like PayPal. Easier way to say it is it's basically like Bitcoin.
That's the voice of Dennis Pavel. He's a 15-year-old Chicago native who came up with the idea to sponsor Josh on the Dogecoin subreddit. Though this isn't really a story about NASCAR, Dogecoin, or even Reddit. It's about the little guy defying all the odds, even for just a moment. Before we get to that story, let's take a quick word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Ting. Ting is an awesome mobile company with no contracts, where you only pay for the calls, texts, and data you actually use with no overages. Their average phone bill, it's only $23 a month. So it's no wonder that so many Redditors really, really love Ting. Seriously, here's what one Redditor named 4Wins said in the r/frugal community. Quote, I've been using it for well over a year now and am very satisfied. I bought a refurbished/used iPhone 4S with iOS 6 as well as an iPad mini, and my bill has been around $30. I obviously don't use a lot of data. No tiers that you pay a penalty for crossing. You just pay for what you use. As we've said before, Ting is now available on GSM as well. So you can essentially pick whether you have Sprint or T-Mobile service at a fraction of the price. My producer actually recently made the switch to Ting from AT&T and reported that it was a great experience, leaving little to be desired. So if you're not already with Ting, sign up now. For $25 in Ting credit or $25 off of a new device, go to upvoted.ting.com. That's upvoted.ting.com. Now, the story of Josh Wise and the Doge car.
Hey, I'm Josh Wise. I am a NASCAR driver, drive the number 98 Dogecoin car, which is what most of you will know it as. From the time I can remember, I wanted to be a race car driver. Like, it was my dream. Like, kids want to be astronauts or they want to be firemen or whatever it might be, And I wanted to be a race car driver. But I, as you get older, I grew up with pretty my parents weren't wealthy or anything, and racing's an expensive sport. So I started racing like go-karts. They were called quarter midgets. And was really successful at that. But as I got older, I realized that it was going to be really difficult for my family to propel me through the racing ranks with our financial abilities. So it remained a dream of mine, but it seemed a bit distant and unattainable. But I kind of continued to work hard at it regardless. And then, got some of the right opportunities based off of kind of like performances in our family car, when we were just, basically racing part-time on short little dirt tracks, working out of our garage and beating larger teams that were spending, probably $500,000 to $1 million a year, where we're spending, $15,000 or $20,000 a year and on old tires and not good engines and all these things that you're supposed to have. So it was always my dream and I always worked hard at it, but at the same time, I've always been kind of a realist, and I realized that it probably wasn't the most likely scenario that was going to unfold in my life. So I, I graduated high school and I was going to college to become a mechanical engineer and things like that. I kind of had a backup plan, but was fortunate that things worked out the way they did. What we couldn't provide for financially, I would spend countless hours in the garage machining parts and just spending time on the little meticulous things about our cars to make them the best that they could be. And then, we also just did a good job at the racetrack and were able to somehow like have stellar performances, which led to some good opportunities for me. Beyond that, I got an opportunity to drive for Tony Stewart on his sprint car team. And Tony is a NASCAR driver currently and was then, for those who don't know who he is. So that was a big opportunity for me because Tony was a guy that I looked up to from the time. I have a photo of me getting an autograph from Tony when I was like 9 years old, So to get a phone call from him when I was, 18 or 19 years old and asking me to come, move to the Midwest and race for him, it was really kind of like a dream come true. And at that moment when I realized, wow, like this can actually happen now, I'm going to have the resources and the backing behind me to propel my career into something professional.
Tony Stewart is a legend in NASCAR. He has won 3 championships and is currently in his 17th season. Having Tony's backing basically allowed Josh Wise the opportunity to pursue race car driving at the highest level. Look, before we go any further, I know what a lot of you are probably thinking. Why should I care about a bunch of people turning left for over 3 hours? Even though it may seem like that's all it is still an extremely technical and mentally challenging sport.
Hey, I'm Daryl Wright. I'm a comic, Comedy Central, Showtime. I do NASCAR for Jay Moore Sports and Fox Sports, and I'm also have a comedy special coming out in September called Runaway. So, yeah, I got to know what I'm talking about. I like NASCAR because it's like a chess match. It's more than just driving left. It's chess. It's different pit stops. It's different strategies. It's a whole bunch of different strategies that go into it. It's not just dudes turning left. On any given Sunday, somebody else can win in a NASCAR race.
At the NASCAR level, it is almost unfathomable the amount of work that goes into every area on the preparation side just to get the cars to the track. And there's always been, and even going back to my early days when I touched on, the extra time and effort we spent working on our cars because because they weren't as good as some of the other equipment. You win, there's a saying in racing, it's you win races at the race shop. You don't win them at the racetrack. And by that, it means with like preparation and having things in order and having a plan and executing and making sure your equipment's going to stay together and not fall apart and just all these little meticulous details that go into everything. So, naturally you progress forward, and now, the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is the highest level of motorsports in the United States, if not the world, right? So now you've just got all these areas where for our team, we build our cars from the ground up. So essentially, they spent 3 months over the winter, basically everything from building frames to brake lines to machining parts and spindles. And it really starts there. And then they take, like our fabricators are artists. They take sheets of metal and they form them to look how the cars look. Like that's just not like some generic body that gets placed on the cars. Like someone's actually taking like bending every curve of those bodies and welding them on and adjusting them to maximize like aerodynamic ability, for, the sides. It's called side force. You want the air to hold the car, but from the right side of the car so that it holds more force so it doesn't spin out through the corner. Then you've got down force and all these things that they work on just before you even get to the phase of putting an engine in the car or anything like that. So that's like really early stage preparation. And then it goes into things like engine, and the engines are all built at specific engine shops that, have so many tests and flow benches and dynos and all these things that they run these engines through to maximize their potential, and then the engine shows up and you put it in the car. And then you've got things when you get to the track, like the engineering and the setup and what springs you're putting in the car. And those are just like the final touches. Like I think people who understand the sport a little bit. Even they think you get to the track, oh, you put springs in it and to make this car go fast and you set your air pressure. But like those are like the last final, almost insignificant touches of the whole process, you know, and it just goes on from our pit crews, the guys that pit the cars. They do it in 11 or 12 seconds. They have 5 lug nuts, they knock on and off, and they change 4 tires and put 19 gallons of gas on the car in 11, 12, 13 seconds. And those guys train all week. Like, that's their job. They go and they do pit stops for 3 hours a day. And there's a real race car and a real setup, and people drive it in and they slide it in and they just do pit stops and they work out all day. So those guys are preparing for their moment. And there's just so many angles that things really need to be right to be successful at this high a level in racing.
And that's just the preparation of the car.
On my end, I spend, you know, at least a few hours a week kind of like watching videos, studying, right? And then along with that, the physical preparation, which I feel like is really important. You know, we're in the cars for long periods of time, 2.5, 3.5, and then we even run a 600-mile race at Charlotte, which takes, you know, 4 hours. So to be in the car for that long, you know, like you touched on it a little earlier, where, you know, people see us just kind of driving in circles. But every time we go to turn left at the end of the straightaway, like, we are taking our car and putting it on the absolute brink of spinning out or running into the wall or running into another car. Like, you have to run at the highest level that your car is capable for the entire time, or you just won't be competitive. So the stamina that is needed for that, it's more on the mental side. Like, the amount of mental fatigue that you get by the end of a race is almost undescribable. I can vouch for the fatigue side also because I do triathlons. And so I've done half Ironman races, which take 5 hours, and I've done a full Ironman race, which takes 11 hours. And the fatigue at some of the races that I've experienced almost mirrors the amount of energy that is taken from my body in those long triathlons, you know, which you're just absolutely, physically exerting yourself for the whole period of time. So all that's really important. You know, I spend a lot of time training during the week to be physically fit and be mentally prepared for the weekends.
In 2014, Josh Wise started driving his first full season in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. However, when you're racing at this level, money makes even more of a difference than it did before.
My name's Louis Frank. I write about all kinds of auto racing for Reuters. There was a cliche from many years ago about auto race. How fast do you want to go? How much money do you have to spend? So it's very hard to break in without money, and that's a shame. It's not a meritocracy.
That's when 15-year-old Dennis Pavel entered the picture.
Hi, I'm Dennis Pavel. I'm the one who created the idea for Dogecoin sponsoring Josh Wise.
He had a pretty peculiar username as well.
Unicorn butt sex. I just really loved cars as a kid, and then I also liked crashing cars. So basically, when I was maybe about 7 or something around there, I did get a NASCAR game, and that had tons of crashes. So I was pretty happy for, you know, playing that game, and then just kind of grew on me. I got the next one, and then I started remembering drivers. Then I started watching it, you know, every once in a while for the big races, and then it just became, you know, like a religion. It's almost every week now that I watch it. I basically 24/7 NASCAR me. I'm just up all night looking up news and stuff. Almost exactly a year ago, Josh Wise was racing without any sponsors. It was just a black car that he was racing his butt off to keep, you know, stay in front of the leaders so he doesn't go a lap down. And that, you know, that just kind of amazed everyone on the NASCAR subreddit, because they also do like the race posts where everyone could post during the race, like, hey, what they're thinking and all that. And everyone is like, wow, look at Josh Wise go. Like, he's actually doing something with a car that has no sponsors and they don't have enough funding to stay up to the front. And yeah, that just caught everyone's attention. That's when I came up with the idea to let's sponsor Josh Wise.
Sponsoring a NASCAR driver is no easy feat, but luckily, Dennis got an idea after recently joining Reddit's Dogecoin community.
2 months in, after its release, it was like last year during January, or it was a month after, it was on Reddit. Some guy was tipping some other user with Dogecoin. I was like, what is this? You know, I've heard about Bitcoin, how big it got, because my friend actually made about $1,000 off his one Bitcoin when he bought it for about $100 or something. It went up to $1,100. So I was like, you know what? Let's try it on Dogecoin. So I bought my first Dogecoin for about $20. I got like 100,000 Dogecoins, and that's just how it started. From like, I was, more into it. I wanted to make money, but then it just started becoming to the community. So I just stuck on the community and not because of the money side. And, it's just all fun and games now.
Dogecoin is a cryptocurrency, kind of like Bitcoin, but very different, that started in December of 2013. Its mascot is the Shiba Inu, the dog, from the famous Doge internet meme. Again, that's spelled D-O-G-E. Trust me, I struggled with how to pronounce this for a very long time. The currency developed a substantial internet following, and the Dogecoin subreddit was the epicenter of it. This community has almost 90,000 subscribers, and it's done so many cool things prior to this, like banding together to donate to build water wells in rural Kenya, all the way to funding the Jamaican bobsledding team's trip to the Sochi Olympics when they qualified but couldn't afford to go. Naturally, Dennis thought that sponsoring Josh Wise could be the next cool thing the community could get behind.
Usually when NASCAR stuff is posted on Reddit in general, it kind of gets bashed on because, a hick sport, redneck sport, whatever. But when I posted a Dogecoin, it blew up, and I was like, well, where do I go from here? The next 2 days after I posted the actual hype post of let's get Josh Wise sponsored by Dogecoin, that's when I started to accept donations. I thought it was going to take a couple months, but from start to finish, it took about a week or less than a week. We raised about $55,000, so it's pretty incredible. It was $55,000, $5,000 in actual currency, but in Dogecoins, I think the rest was made about $50,000 in Dogecoins. So mostly Dogecoin, but there was a little bit of actual money going on there. It became serious when I actually contacted the team, and they actually came on Reddit. And they started posting themselves like, hey, yeah, this is going to be awesome. Let's do it.
It was after Bristol. I literally got just like a random tweet. Someone said, hey, have you seen these people? They're trying to raise money to sponsor you guys, right? And I'm like, that's a really nice gesture. But I'm like, who's going to raise $60,000? You know what I mean? Like, I was like, man, that's really cool. And that's awesome. But, I don't even know that we should take it because I don't, it's like, it's not going to amount to enough to swing the pendulum or anything like that. So lo and behold, it was like, I went and I checked out Dogecoin and things like that. And I'm like, oh, this is, I thought it was kind of cool. And I thought it was really awesome what people were trying to do, and didn't see it as a reality, right? Didn't see it actually materializing in anything. But it was like 3 days later, we got an email from someone at Dogecoin saying, hey, this, here's the site and you can track it. And we're, people are donating and we really think this is going to happen. And I'm like, I go to the site, the crowdfunding site that they had kind of created. And it was like 3/4 of the way there. It was like $35,000 or $40,000. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me, And so the whole thing was just mind boggling. I think it took 5 or 6 days to raise enough Dogecoin to sponsor the car. And my owner Phil was in contact with a few people on the initial kind of like cost of what we needed to kind of like wrap the car and do pit uniforms, just all the things that we do around a sponsorship. And then it was like before we knew it, within a week, the car was funded with Dogecoin, and we were working on designs, and it was just crazy, And for me, and I've told you this when we met, when you came to Talladega, but this whole process like introduced me to Reddit, So it was like so awesome to kind of like discover something new out of the whole thing too. Initially, it was kind of like, wow, how have I kind of been missing this, my whole life. It was an incredible experience from the beginning all the way through to the actual race at Talladega. We had just a ton of support and have met so many awesome people through the whole experience, and just really enjoyed it.
It should be noted that $60,000 is actually insanely inexpensive to be a primary sponsor for a race.
That's pretty much dirt cheap to get a whole car in basically your company or something like that. Because one of the most popular drivers is Dale Earnhardt Jr. Yeah, he drives the number 88, but he's probably just booked. So I mean, like we didn't even try because we knew it was going to be expensive. But for just a little part of the car, it was like 200 something thousand for one race, just like a little bumper. While Josh Wise was $55,000 for the whole car.
Josh Wise ended up driving the Doge car, designed by fans, in 2014's Aaron's 499 race at Talladega Speedway. Despite finishing 20th, he became what many called the internet's driver. It got to the point that even NASCAR began to take notice.
I mean, they did post on Facebook, like, the Doge car and all that. They're like, wow, much wow or something like that on their actual Facebook. So that was pretty crazy. That's when I started, dying of laughing because NASCAR themselves on Facebook put much wow and then posted a big picture of the Shiba Inu.
They even saw big spikes on Twitter whenever they posted about Josh Wise.
Basically, when NASCAR posts something, it gets like 20 retweets. But whenever they posted something like Dogecar or Dogecoin or Josh Wise, it got like 400 to 500 favorites and retweets. So pretty much a big incline compared to what they're used to.
Name is Kyle Sheldon, Senior Manager of Digital and Social Media Communications at NASCAR. Certainly everybody had heard of Bitcoin and knows a lot about cryptocurrency in general, but there wasn't a lot of knowledge around Dogecoin. And when that first started bubbling up and you started to see things coming across, we saw our engagement rates increase pretty significantly around content about Josh Wise. It was pretty clear the community was passionate, excited, and was really the driving force behind that whole car sponsorship.
Naturally, it couldn't end there.
We ran the original Doge car race at Talladega, and there was a picture of you, myself, and Eric in front of the car, and you guys had the crew shirts on, and I had my driver's uniform on. And so I got completely blown up, worn out, whatever you want to call it, about people. They wanted those crew shirts, right? And the crew shirts are extremely expensive to make, let alone sell and ship. And it's like, so I'm like, well, I really want to give everyone what they want. It's like after everything they've done at this point, like they want these shirts, I'm going to find a way to get them these shirts, So I designed like a t-shirt version, which actually I have on now still, and did it through just like a pre-order site, and just basically said, hey, everyone who wanted the crew shirts can go and grab them. And it was like, we didn't want to just like take everybody's money and, thanks. And so we're like, if we raise some money and enough people buy these things, we'll put it all towards like sponsoring another race, And so we had the shirts for sale for 10 days, I think it was. And it funded another race. We sold like $60,000. It was over 60. It was like $65,000 or $70,000 in T-shirts in 10 days. And that was another thing that was really like completely out of our hands, and literally kind of a photo and a lot of requests, and then just kind of meeting the requests turned into another Doge car race at the Fall Talladega. And we also ran like some, everybody loves the Shibu on the back of the car, like peeking out. And there was like a lot of gifts and stuff about, showing the in-car cameras and things like that. So we ran a few other races with, just the Dogecoin, the Shibu on the back of the car, just because we thought people would get a kick out of that and kind of have fun with it, But yeah, so that was another thing that was incredible that kind of happened.
When the fan vote for the All-Star race came around, Josh told everyone that if he won the fan vote, he would drive the Doge car at the All-Star race.
Basically, if you're a past champion or a past race winner, you get to race this All-Star race, and it's in Charlotte in May. And there's one person who gets into that race, and it's solely based on a fan vote. And so, I knew that a lot of people were voting because it sends you like a Twitter, like, hey, someone voted for you. And so those were like raining in. But at the same time, I'm like, there's, it's going to be awesome if we can pull it off. But there's no way we're going to beat Danica, And lo and behold, we did. It was unreal. And I think the most shocked people of all was the NASCAR community, because it's like, here's this like little team and this kind of like underdog driver, and, we're just kind of struggling along and trying to make something and build something for ourselves. and then were thrust onto this big stage really, really surprised a lot of people.
Yeah, he got, I believe, like 2 million votes, while Danica Patrick got like 1 million, I think, so he almost doubled her. I mean, for sure, if we didn't do anything about it, he would, I mean, obviously, he would never have been in the All-Star race, but he's never driven a full season in the Sprint Cup Series ever. So, I mean, he would have been probably last compared to the others, because I know another small driver is like Landon Castle, but people know about him because he's raced full seasons before.
For people that don't know NASCAR, it would be like if you voted Aquaman as your favorite superhero. He sucks. Nobody ever votes for Aquaman. Like, Aquaman isn't in anybody's movie. He's not going to be in the Justice League. He's not going to be in anything. He's just Aquaman. He's just there. It's like, look, Aquaman, if I flush my keys down the toilet, find him. Other than that, he's worthless. Aquaman has superpowers. It's just his superpowers suck. Josh Wise can drive. It's just he needs better equipment.
Winning the fan vote and getting twice as many votes as Danica Patrick is a huge undertaking. After the break, we'll talk about the NASCAR community's reaction, the impact all of this has had on Josh, and what Josh Wise is currently up to. This episode is brought to you by Ting. It's not just fun to say, Ting is a great cell phone provider that wants to give you excellent service at an even better price. Joining us again today is Jesse Sims. Jesse is the content coordinator at Ting, and we've discussed Ting's excellent customer service before, but they don't even have a phone tree.
So a phone tree is, when you call someone and you get press 1 to go here, press 2 to go here, like a directory service. Whereas with Ting, when you call Ting, there's no phone tree. It's just someone answers the phone.
Though it doesn't end there.
You get an agent there who's willing to help you in every possible way. It's really not just, answering your billing questions and wondering, when your billing date ends. It could be, what is the oldest animal ever in existence? And I'm sure that an agent would Google it and try and figure out the answer for you.
So we decided to test this out, since that was a pretty bold statement. We called Ting's customer service line on Easter to tell us what the best pizza shop currently open in Williamsburg, New York was, and what pie we should order.
Thank you for calling Ting. This is Kevin. How may I help you? There's a Roberta's. That's in East Williamsburg. The address is 261 Moore Street. Quite a few people like the original. It's referred to as perfection, so you can try the original just to test them out and see what it's like.
It's clear that Ting not only knows about good customer service, but they've also got some great pizza recommendations as well. If you're interested in learning more about Ting, go to the r/Ting subreddit and feel free to private message Jesse on Reddit at ActionJesse. Seriously, more companies need to follow this lead. When you decide to join, go to upvoted.ting.com and receive $25 in Ting credit or $25 off of a new device. That's upvoted.ting.com. Now, back to the story of Josh Wise and the Doge car. So it seemed to me that we're at this peculiar intersection between NASCAR and social media. We wanted to know how real the impact was. So our producer went down to the track of Fontana Speedway. He went into the middle of it all, in the infield, as it's called, where the most die-hard NASCAR fans camp for days in anticipation of the race. There, he ran into some pretty amazing stuff, like this unusual fountain, which this man so eloquently describes.
It is a penis-pouring vodka filler.
So naturally, these are the responses we got when we asked people if they were familiar with Dogecoin.
No, I'm not.
No.
No, I'm not. Oh, that's right. Yeah. The online. Yeah. I've heard of it.
Deutsch? It's German. All right, so we're getting into another level of articulation right now, right? You say Deutsch or Deutsch? It's cleansing action.
Then he asked people if they were familiar with Reddit.
No, I'm not.
No.
Retinol?
Of what? Redhead? Yeah. Reddit.
It's like a video game thing. I just see video games on it.
What's that?
You actually are a Redditor?
Oh, yeah.
So, what are your favorite subs?
What?
Subreddits.
I can't hear you.
Oh, subreddits. What are your favorite subreddits?
What's that?
Oh, so you don't use Reddit?
No.
Okay.
He also asked if they were familiar with Josh Wise. And keep in mind, Fontana is virtually his hometown track.
Not really, no.
Not much at all.
Isn't he TV? He works TV.
You know, I know that he drove for Dale Jr. at one time in his career.
Who? I'm gonna say truthfully, I don't know what the shit you're talking about.
After searching for over 90 minutes, our producer finally found a group in their mid-20s playing music over a Bluetooth system. They ended up being the only Redditors we found at the race that day, but they definitely knew who Josh Wise was.
The bunch of people on Reddit got behind him and helped sponsor his car, so he's like the people's driver, the people's car.
Well, you know, I am a Reddit user. I do subscribe to the NASCAR sub, and all I can say is that it's a great group of people. It's a very great sub. I knew nothing about Josh Wise before Reddit joined together and sponsored his Dogecoin car. And, by the way, also gave him the fan vote to go into the All-Star race. So that was open to past champions and race winners from that season. They also voted him into a race that could win $1 million. The fact that they were able to put that car out there using that cryptocurrency is pretty wild.
I'm kind of sad that the Doge car isn't still a thing.
Yet we were still perplexed that the mainstream NASCAR community didn't seem to be aware of what happened.
There's an old guard, you know, but as far as like the generation that needs to skew younger for NASCAR to get younger people into it, I can't see anything better for the sport, even if the old guard doesn't like it, and I understand why they don't like it.
This isn't because the sport isn't versed with social media. On the contrary, NASCAR has an active Twitter account, Facebook page, Snapchat account, and they even encourage many of their drivers to do AMAs on the NASCAR subreddit, as Kyle Sheldon from NASCAR describes.
We've really tried to embrace the community there. It's a growing community, has grown a lot over the last couple of years. We've done AMAs on a regular basis over the last 2 years. Our very first one was with Jimmy Johnson after he won the Daytona 500 a couple of years ago. And we've seen that the rest of the NASCAR community has sort of caught on to what's happening there and how passionate that community is, very knowledgeable community. So now we're seeing folks within the industry, teams and drivers, do AMAs on a fairly regular basis.
Which brings us back to the old guard that the Redditor we met at the track brought up. So we spoke again to Louis Frank at the Associated Press, and it became very clear what happened.
My understanding is that you can vote as many times as you want. Certain websites have some kind of cookies or something that only allow you to vote once, but apparently the most popular vote is you can just keep hitting the button like a Rorschach monkey. So what they did was, my understanding is they gamed the system, and somebody from Dogecoin just had them, like kept pressing vote Josh Wise. Hey, this is America, and they gamed the system, and it is NASCAR, and if you ain't cheating, you ain't racing. So he was a one-hit wonder.
It's pretty obvious that Lewis thinks all this happened because Josh Wise enthusiasts gamed the system, and even NASCAR agrees.
Yeah, I think it was just a matter of we and I can't speak specifically to the higher ups at NASCAR. Don't know what their perspective is, but my understanding is that hadn't really experienced something like that before, where a big community got behind it and just was going full bore and voting as frequently and as often as they could. So yeah, it's a matter of you want it to be sort of fair for the whole group, but if a community is really passionate and really gets behind something, you don't necessarily want to discourage that either. So what we saw on social was that the Dogecoin community, a community that typically maybe hadn't been engaged with NASCAR, because they got excited about Josh Wise and because they were following it so closely, a lot of them seem to be kind of come around to being NASCAR fans. And we have folks now that we see on social who are clearly watching the race on a weekly basis. So one of the great things that came out of it was that we attracted a lot of different folks to come test the waters, and we've seen that they've now become fans, which is awesome.
Knowing all of this, we spoke to Dennis again and asked him what really happened.
Josh Wise and Phil Parsons came to us on Reddit, and they said, if you vote us into the race, we'll put the Doge car, the Dogecoin Shiba Inu, onto the car, and we'll have a little fun there. And we just had this whole big voting session thing going on. Like there's a chat going up or constant, the IRC chat, where a constant people would be on there and they just keep talking and keep voting. There's also live streams on Twitch, which is kind of funny, where they just keep voting on Twitch, and that's all you see them do is just keep on voting right after another. I believe it was on the front page of Dogecoin almost every day, where it reminded you to vote for the All-Star race for Josh Wise, and there's a whole bunch of people putting in a whole lot of votes there was this one guy who said he did 84,000 times. I believe they added CAPTCHAs after we voted so many times, so they added that so it slowed down the voting process. But obviously that gave us more of a motivation to vote more. But there was, in the rules it said you can vote as many times as you want, so that's what they did.
So nobody broke the rules at all. Yet there was still a lot of negative reaction from NASCAR insiders. Even Brant James from ESPN wrote on the matter, stating, and I quote, "In its current form, all of NASCAR's dark site hackers must be hastily rewriting code to prevent those Reddit rapscallions and their like from rigging the system next spring. Voting Wise into the All-Star race was akin to conduct detrimental to stock car racing, or at least its marketing wing. Is that a finable offense? If so, is it payable in Dogecoin?" End quote. So, of course, NASCAR made some changes to the rules this year.
You can only be in the U.S. now for some reason, even though NASCAR wants to be more global. But obviously, they just changed that to be U.S. only. And then you have an email. You have to put in an email, and you can only vote once a day. So that is definitely going to slow everything down. Not as many votes as are going to go in, but people are getting around it with VPNs and all that, which is pretty funny. But there's like a way to get around it because you could have as many emails as you want. It's not by IP address. It's just by the email. So, I mean, there's countless ways to get around it.
Although we won't encourage anyone to cheat, I'll certainly be putting in my votes. There's even an extension you can get on Google Chrome that'll remind you to vote every single day. We'll link to that in the show notes. Regardless, Josh Wise is an awesome guy, and he's gotten to learn a lot about the Dogecoin community, and he wants to give back in any way, not expecting anything in return.
It's like a world of how everything should be almost. You know what I mean? Like everyone's tipping and like giving and happy, and it's a great place to go, And like I've had an amazing time just spending time in the Dogecoin subreddit and just interacting and hanging out and answering questions, and not even I even got to the point over the last 6 months where I just want to be like one of them. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to go in and be you Doge driver. Like I just want to go in and I want to browse and I want to comment, and I don't want special attention or anything like that. You know what I mean? It's just in Reddit in general, I like that, that aspect of it all, so it's the Dogecoin subreddit is an incredible place, and I love spending time in there and just soaking it up. There will be some form of a Doge car. It might not be the full wrap that we saw at Talladega. It might just be the Shibu on the back or whatever. We might just have a little fun with it, but we do have some leverage there to kind of play with some things and have a little fun.
Josh Wise is in his second full season at the Sprint Cup level, and any sponsorship help he can get means a lot.
We race our car unsponsored often still, right? And the level that we do that at is much lower than when we do have funding to race it. So not only does it increase the level, like we had our best finish of the year when we ran the Doge car, and that was due to being able to be more prepared and have a little bit better motor and just all the little things that come with some funding, right? So not only does it help that one race, it helps the entire season.
Before Josh left, he had some last words on the success of his Dogecoin partnership.
People have asked me, like, how'd you pull that off? And I'm like, I had nothing to do with that. You know what I mean? Like people are like, how'd you do that crowdfunding deal? And it's like, I didn't. Like it just happened. Be organic and be genuine and, be nice and giving. And like it was just so cool. The whole dynamic of it all was really incredible. And I think that it was everything that we should all stay true to.
I love the whole story because it's basically F you to everybody, because that's the one thing that NASCAR fears more than anything else is what happened with Josh Wise. It's like, guess what? You can have fans outside of the borders that you already know. And Josh Wise proved that by making it to your biggest event, which is the All-Star race, without any of your conventional fans voting for him. I think it's amazing. I think it's awesome. And I think what Josh Wise and what Reddit did is do NASCAR a big favor, which is start to drag them kicking and screaming into the 20th century. So thank you, Reddit, and thank you, Josh Wise. Thank you, all of the guys that voted for him. y'all did a sport that I like a lot, a big favorite, without even knowing it.
Josh's story is certainly a remarkable one. He's been facing and conquering the economic adversity of racing since he started. Working with Dogecoin was just one more chapter of overcoming that challenge, and with enough of an opportunity, I know Josh will be a champion, and I'm excited to have been part of the ride. Dennis is currently working on a neat project to try to raise money and sponsor yet another Josh Wise race.
We got a quote for flags. So pretty much just head over to the Dogecoin subreddit. We're going to have any pretty much updates on the flags, and these flags will probably be with the 98 logo on there, or the Shiba Inu with the 98 logo on there, and pretty much just spread around the idea of having these flags out there, spread them around to your friends, because these flags are gonna be a little like community sort of logo of, hey, we're supporting this driver. I just want, you know, Phil Parsons Racing to just succeed. They've been pretty awesome, and I just want to try everything that we can that's possible to help these guys out, because they've been really awesome to us, and I mean, I've been enjoying it for the most part.
So this is what we're going to do. We're going to start a t-shirt fundraiser using the artwork from this episode, and all the profits, every penny, will go to Josh Wise and the Doge car. Thanks to our very own Dante, also known as Young Luck from episode 0 of Upvoted. We have some amazing art for this episode of Upvoted. Actually, we've had a bunch of amazing art thanks to Dante, but this one in particular is going to look really good on a black t-shirt, which we will be selling in the show notes. And we'll give all the profits, every penny, to Josh Wise. Now look, it's going to take a lot of shirts to try to sponsor another Doge car, and I don't expect us to do it, but I thought, hey, maybe we can enjoy some nice shirts, we'll have a great memory of this episode, and maybe, just maybe, we can help fund another Doge car. And before you get upset at me, no, you cannot pay for these shirts with Dogecoin. Don't blame me, blame Teespring. But as always, let us know what you think about this episode, about the shirts, about, well, everything at r/upvoted. That subreddit can also be reached by upvoted.reddit.com, whichever you prefer. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you let us know how we're doing, because we've been looking forward to everything you've had to say, and the only reason it has come this far is because of feedback from awesome people like you. We'd also like to thank Unbabble for providing transcription and translation services for this show and every episode of Upvoted by Reddit. Transcripts can be found in English and in Espanol under the relevant links heading for every episode, as well as in the subreddit's wiki. Thanks again for joining us in this journey as we take one more left-handed turn around the track. We'll see you again next week on Upvoted by Reddit.